Dr. Patty Cook-Craig. I'm an associate professor at the College of Social Work and the chair of the Community and Social Development concentration.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cook-Craig, for this interview. Would you talk about your research, especially about the green dot?
Sure. So we've just, in the last 5 to 7 years in Kentucky, there's been a lot of violence prevention planning work being done, and that's been part of a cooperative relationship with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And what the CDC is really pushing states to look at is prevention of sexual violence and teen dating violence, but primarily prevention of perpetration of violence. So the state really has done a lot of engagement in what are the evidence-based strategies, and the CDC asked states to consider using evidence-based strategies. So we asked, well, what are they? And there's really not a lot of research on what's evidence-based in, especially in decreasing perpetration of sexual violence. Really, there's one program that's shown some evidence called Safe Dates, and that's limited in terms of what kinds of violence they test. So the practitioners that I work with and the state planners said that if we were going to put new programming in Kentucky, we wanted to put in programming that we could test whether or not it's effective, and we could add to the evidence base. The prevailing perspective amongst practitioners and state planners is that we don't want to do anything that doesn't work. And if there's not evidence out there to suggest the programs that we think might be effective or that are promising, if the evidence doesn't exist for that, then we're going to go get that evidence in conjunction with putting the programs on the ground.
So do you find that it is effective?
So they selected, this was actually a new thing, they selected Green Dot as a program that they were going to pilot statewide. Part of the reason for piloting it statewide is so that we could get enough data to see if it was effective. And we're doing the statewide pilot in the high school, but Green Dot really started at UK. It was a UK homegrown program developed by Dr. Dorothy Edwards, who was here at the time. And what we found so far, the article that is out in the literature right now, is on the college population. And we have some promising first evidence. So the evidence that we have suggests that Green Dot, which is a program that's in two parts. So there's a smaller speech that is widespread, disseminated to a large group. And then there's a more targeted, what we call bystander training, and that's to a select group of people. These would be influential students who can then go influence their friends to engage in new behaviors. And what we find is that on UK is that the speech alone actually has an effect of creating students who, when they see a violent situation, they're more likely to engage in a behavior as a bystander. But the bystander training, the longer training, has even a greater effect. And so if a student hears a speech, or if they hear a speech and attend the bystander training, they're going to engage more to decrease violence as a bystander, or they're going to engage in behaviors that would promote not having violence in the first place more often than people who don't get the training. So that's good preliminary evidence. What we don't know yet is does that decrease rates of violence? So when you think about evidence, you think, well, I do want people to do new behaviors. That's important. I want them to do the things that the program trains them to do. But at the end of the day, when you talk about prevention, it's only good if it really decreases the actual incidence of violence. So that's where we're at right now. We're the article that is out in the literature right now is good first evidence, but we're doing annual data collection now on UK, and we're actually in a 5-year CDC-funded pilot to collect similar data at the high school.
And this class is for the CSD, so would you recommend any policy implication and for students who want to do more macro practice and how research should be involved in policy work?
Well, so in terms of, I'd say, agency or organizational policy, I think that if you're thinking about things like violence prevention, one of the things we have to commit to is robust evaluation. And that has to be the kinds of things that organizations expect and create. Because if you say, for instance, there's not enough evidence-based programs, we don't know what works to prevent that, the only way to get out of that problem is to be part of evaluating the programs that are on the ground. So I think as agency and organizational policy, we have to say we're not going to do anything that doesn't also get evaluated as rigorously as possible. I think in terms of state policy, one of the things that we're really learning is that we need to promote good, rigorous evaluation, but we also have to look at how we disseminate evidence-based programs in school settings and then in university settings, so that when we begin to learn more and more about what works, we need state-level policy from folks like the Department of Education, folks like the Post-Secondary Education Council, from groups that help schools know how to select these programs. We need for them to say, we're going to engage in policy and strategy that makes sure that we're only going to put programs into schools and universities that are evidence-based, or that we at least have some research to suggest are promising and works. I guess in this research arena, that would be my advice. For practitioners, I think individually you have to be committed to evaluation, not because you love research or it's your favorite thing to do, but because there's no other way around that question about is what I'm doing effective. The only way you can answer that is to be part of the evaluation team, or to evaluate what you do.
Is there any comment for the future social workers or so researcher?
My basic advice is commitment to evaluating what you do, commitment to being a good consumer of research, right? So that it's really not okay for us to say, well, I don't know what the latest information is on my field. So even if you're not engaged in doing evaluation specifically, you should be in the literature. You should be understanding what the latest is, because the science around what works is changing rapidly, right? So the advent of the ability to analyze things in new and different ways, to look at different models and theories and how they actually work in practice, that changes more rapidly every day. And so we've got to keep up with the innovations. And innovation is only good if we're using it, and if we're using it correctly. A commitment to lifelong learning. Yeah, I mean, I think that definitely your MSW is the beginning of your study in how to solve social problems. And the end, I think, is like retirement. So just looking for opportunities to always push your thinking, grow in areas. Think about things from a new theoretical perspective or a new practice perspective is really important. The other thing that's really important is to engage in collaboration, not with people who just think like us or have the same degree as us or have the same ideas as us, but more importantly, more and more what we're learning is to solve the big social problems of our day, we have to have people in the room that think exactly opposite of us or have a different degree or a different discipline. So part of this whole idea of being a lifelong learner is like taking all these experiences in, getting all the different kinds of viewpoints and lenses you can, and then thinking critically about how to put them together. The best innovations are innovations that come from all different fields.